The old man walked into the precinct to retrieve something that belonged to him, but he met an officer who thought the law was his personal playground. Accusations flew, and then a choking grip tightened around his neck. But there was something about this old man that left the entire police department stunned. Just wait, you haven't heard the best part yet. William Gray, a 68-year-old African-American man with a quiet but resolute demeanor, stepped out of his weathered pickup truck and approached the entrance of the local police station. His movements were steady, even if time and a hard life had etched their marks on his body. The late afternoon sun glinted off his dark, neatly pressed jacket, which bore the kind of timeless style that only experience could perfect. Inside, the station buzzed with life. Phones rang, officers chatted about mundane cases, and somewhere in the back, someone laughed too loudly at a joke that probably wasn't funny. William was met at the front desk by a young secretary who gave him a polite, if slightly distracted, smile. "Take a seat for a moment, sir. Someone will be with you shortly," she said, gesturing to the waiting area. William nodded, acknowledging her professionalism, and settled into a squeaky wooden chair. He unfolded his newspaper, a tangible holdover from a time before screens took over, and began reading. His weathered hands flipped the pages with an ease that suggested he'd done this for decades. Meanwhile, across the room, a group of officers were gathered around a coffee pot, trading stories and half-hearted complaints about the day's work. One officer, however, stood apart. Jackson Reed, a mid-30s patrolman with sharp features and a posture that screamed self-importance, had his eyes locked on William. Reed's face twisted into a smirk as he leaned toward his nearest colleague. "Hey, check it out," he said, loud enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. "We got ourselves a new visitor. Think he's here to confess to something, or maybe he's just lost, like they always are." The comment hung in the air, drawing a few awkward chuckles from the group. Most of them avoided eye contact, pretending to be preoccupied with their mugs or paperwork. Reed, undeterred, decided to escalate. Striding across the room with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged, he planted himself squarely in front of William, hands on his hips. His shadow fell over the older man, who continued to read as if nothing had happened. "Hey there, Pops, what brings you in today? Visiting old friends behind bars, maybe?" Reed's grin widened as he spoke, his voice dripping with condescension. William slowly folded his newspaper and looked up, meeting Reed's gaze with calm, measured eyes. His voice was steady, deliberate. "I'm here because I was asked to come. That's all you need to know, officer." The tone should have been a cue to back off, but for someone like Reed, it was an invitation to push further. "Oh, come on," Reed said, tilting his head in mock curiosity. "Don't give me that man of mystery routine. You're not exactly blending in here, you know. Guys like you, yeah, we know the type. Always trying to act innocent, but it's just a matter of time before the truth comes out." The words, heavy with implication, caught the attention of a few officers nearby. Some glanced over but quickly returned to their tasks, unwilling to intervene. Reed, seeing no resistance, doubled down. "Let's make this easy, huh?" he said, his smirk now a full-blown sneer. "Why don't you come with me to my office? We'll have ourselves a little chat, just you and me." William stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then with a small sigh, he stood up. His frame, though leaner now with age, still carried a presence that Reed couldn't ignore. Without a word, William followed the officer across the bustling station floor. Reed pushed open the door to his cramped office, gesturing theatrically for William to enter. "After you, sir," he said, his tone laced with sarcasm. As William stepped inside, the sound of the door closing behind him felt like a prelude to something far heavier than a simple conversation. Reed, brimming with misplaced confidence, was about to make it a moment neither of them would ever forget. Reed's office was a cluttered mess. Certificates hung crookedly on the walls, and a few dust-covered photos showed him shaking hands with local officials, all trying to look important. His desk, piled high with papers and a half-empty coffee mug, left barely enough space for the two of them. "Sit down, old man," Reed said, gesturing to a rickety chair that seemed like it might collapse under the weight of a feather. His tone was sharp, filled with an unnecessary air of authority. William calmly took the seat, his back straight and his hands resting on his knees. There was no fear in his demeanor, just a quiet resolve. He watched as Reed leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, studying him like he was some kind of puzzle to solve. "All right, let's hear it," Reed said with a smug grin. "What are you doing here?" William met his gaze evenly. "I was asked to come here." "Oh, asked to come here," Reed repeated mockingly. He leaned forward, planting his elbows on the desk. "And what exactly did you lose that brought you to my office?" "That's between me and the police," William said, his tone steady. Reed let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But let me tell you something. Guys like you all have the same story, playing innocent, acting like you're the victim. Well, newsflash, I don't buy it." William didn't respond. His calm silence seemed to irritate Reed even more. "You think you've got rights here?" Reed snapped, his voice growing louder. "You think you can just walk in here and act like you're above the rules? I've seen your type before, always scheming, always hiding something." "I've got nothing to hide," William replied, his voice as firm as ever. "And I don't have to explain myself to you." That did it. Reed's chair scraped loudly as he shot up to his feet, his face twisted with anger. "You don't have to? Let me make something clear. In my office, you don't get to talk down to me." He walked around the desk and loomed over William, his eyes narrowing. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I know you're hiding something, and I'm going to find out what it is." William looked up at him, his calm composure unwavering. "If you've got questions, ask them, but I suggest you keep it professional." Reed's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl. Without warning, he grabbed the front of William's shirt, pulling him up out of the chair. His face was inches away, his voice low and filled with venom. "You think you can come in here and lecture me? Not on my watch," Reed growled. His grip tightened. "Confess, old man. Tell me what you're up to." William's breathing became strained as he tried to loosen the grip on his collar. His voice, though quiet, was steady. "Let go." Reed only tightened his grip, shaking him slightly. "Not until you tell me what you're hiding." The air in the room felt heavy, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. William's face paled as the pressure on his chest increased. Then, without warning, the door to the office burst open. "What in the world is going on here?" boomed a voice, sharp and commanding. The office door swung open with a loud thud, startling both men inside. Standing in the doorway was Captain Mark Jefferson, his piercing gaze locking instantly on the scene before him. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Reed, let him go! Right now!" Reed froze, his grip on William's collar slackening as he stumbled back, realizing the gravity of the situation. William, though visibly shaken, took a deep breath and adjusted his jacket, his composure returning. "What the hell is going on here?" Jefferson demanded, his tone sharp and commanding as he stepped further into the room. Reed stammered, his usual confidence replaced with nervous energy. "Captain, I thought he was acting suspicious. I mean, look at him. I was just trying to figure out what he was hiding." Jefferson's eyes narrowed, his disapproval evident. "Suspicious? Sitting in the waiting area quietly is suspicious now? Or are you making assumptions based on something else?" Reed faltered but attempted to defend himself. "Sir, with all due respect, people like him, they're always up to something." "People like him," Jefferson repeated coldly, his voice dropping to an even tone that sent a chill through the room. "Care to clarify that, Reed? Because the only person up to something right now is you." Reed opened his mouth to respond, but quickly realized no explanation would save him. He glanced nervously between the captain and William. Jefferson turned to William, his expression softening. "Mr. Gray, please accept my deepest apologies. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and I will make sure it's addressed." William nodded, his voice calm but firm. "I appreciate that, Captain, but an apology doesn't erase what just happened." "It won't go unanswered," Jefferson assured him before turning back to Reed. "Do you even know who you just assaulted?" "Mr. Gray is a decorated Iraq war veteran. He's here to retrieve his medal, which we recovered after it was stolen. And you," Jefferson paused for emphasis, glaring at Reed, "decided to treat him like a criminal." Reed's face drained of color as the weight of Jefferson's words sank in. I didn't know." "You didn't bother to ask," Jefferson snapped. You jumped to conclusions and used force where none was needed. That's not just unprofessional, it's a disgrace." Jefferson stepped back toward the doorway, signaling for another officer. "Sergeant Davis, remove Officer Reed's badge and weapon. He's suspended immediately, pending a full investigation." Reed tried to protest, but Jefferson's icy glare silenced him. Davis moved swiftly, and within moments Reed was escorted out of the office, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Jefferson turned back to William, his tone sincere. "Mr. Gray, I assure you we'll take this matter seriously. You've been through enough, and it's clear we have work to do here." William met his gaze with quiet dignity. "Thank you, Captain. Words are appreciated, but actions mean more." Jefferson nodded solemnly. "You'll see both." The story spread quickly, igniting outrage and sparking change. William was celebrated as a symbol of resilience and dignity, with volunteers and community members rallying around him. Meanwhile, the precinct implemented reforms, including mandatory ethics training, to prevent future incidents like this. As for Reed, his career ended as a cautionary tale of what happens when power is misused. And while William Gray's ordeal left scars, it also became a powerful example of how courage and integrity can inspire change. What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you or someone you know faced similar situations? Let us know, and don't forget to like this post if the story resonated with you. This story was created to shed light on important issues and inspire positive change. Your opinion matters, and together, we can work toward a better, fairer world.